Okay, okay, there we are.
Oh, hey, good morning. I was just looking at one of my
There we are.
PowerPoints.
Okay. Well,
Good morning.
how's my star athlete?
Really good. I had something really bizarre happen last night as I went to bed. Dixie came and laid down with me, and I was just falling asleep. And she all of a sudden stood up and booked it out of the room. And I was like, what's going on here? And she always sleeps with me. The only time she sleeps with Chris is when she's nervous about or scared or something. So I was like, well, that's weird. I wonder what that was about. And I had this sense, I thought, well, she must have sensed something. And so I kind of laid back down, and the room was still dark. I didn't turn the lights on or anything. And so laying there, and all of a sudden I felt like she was back on the bed with me. And I thought, well, I didn't feel her jump up or walk around me. So I was on my right side and her bed was right there. And I felt something by my knee, the very same knee that's injured, but it felt like the footprint of her, like a small animal taking steps. And I sat up and I looked and there was nothing there. I don't really turn on the lights because I can see in the dark. I mean, you could see through the dark. Anyway, I was like, well, that's strange. I'm looking around, my adrenaline's, you know, not super high, but it was activated. And I'm like, okay. So I lay back down and, maybe a couple, 3 minutes later, I'm drifting off again and it happened again. And I'm looking and I'm like, okay, well, I know I didn't imagine that. So that's something there. And I didn't really know what to do about it. And I thought in my head, well, okay, Jesus, whatever this spirit is, I rebuke you, go away, leave in Jesus' name. So again, drift off this. And then it happened a third time.
Oh my gosh. Was this
And
last night?
yeah, and again in my head, I said the same thing. I rebuke you, leave. And as I'm laying there, my adrenaline's going. And I'm thinking, okay, this is an evil spirit. I mean, just 2 days ago, Lucifer's in my dream,
Yeah,
something's
yeah, yeah.
right by my knee. And I thought about what we had talked about, the power of the spoken word. So I thought, well, I need to say this out loud. So I did. I said, whatever's there, Lucifer, or whatever spirit, I rebuke you. You have to leave in the name of Jesus. Go. This time it did it while I'm looking. I don't see anything, but I feel it again. And so I was nervous, I was like, oh shit, and I'm going, okay, Diana, Jesus protecting you. There's nothing that can hurt you. You are protected. So I'm calming down. And so I just thought, there's something that I did when I was walking Dixie during Halloween, and I would see all those Halloween decorations in the neighborhood. And every time I looked at one, I'd say Jesus to it. And I'd walk around the neighborhood and say, Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. It's like you don't get to be active in my hood kind of thinking. And so that popped in my head. And so I was like, okay, I just said Jesus, Jesus, like 10 or 15 times. And it finally all stopped. And I was like, wow. And then I went to sleep, but Dixie came back. So I woke up again. I don't even know how much later it was. She wouldn't lay in her bed in that area. She wanted to be right next to me, which I don't care for because she makes me super hot. But I thought, well, she's freaked out. Let me just comfort her. And so she was there about 10 minutes. And I was like, okay, baby, let's put you in your bed. She was half asleep. I was half asleep. She wouldn't go in her bed because that's right where it was happening. And I put her in her bed and she laid there for about, I don't know, 2 or 3 minutes. Finally got up and went out to Chris again. And so I walked her out with the little flashlight. And again, the same thing happened. She came, with him for a little while and then came back. But she wouldn't go in her bed. And so I took her outside. She went to the bathroom. We come in. She just wouldn't lay in her bed. And so finally I said, just stay out here with daddy, And Chris was like, yeah, come on up here, and he's cuddling, whatever. I think maybe 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, she finally came back and went in her bed and we slept the rest of the night. And so I woke up and I was saying, I was kind of avoided the subject, but finally I talked to Chris about it. I said, Dixie was really spooked last night. She wouldn't settle down. He goes, yeah, I know, blah, 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 blah. And again, I was avoiding it. Finally, I said, well, you might think this is crazy, but let me tell you what happened. So I explained the whole thing. And he goes, oh, I feel that all the time. And I go, what? He goes, yeah, I think it's Patches, our old cat. I think she's coming to mess with us. And I said, well, it's
He
not.
feels it all the time, but he's never said anything.
No. And I said, well, I said, it's not a good spirit. I said, good spirits don't come back and do that. They just don't. I said, so whether it's the cat or not, it's bad juju. I said, it's from Lucifer, and he goes, yeah, he goes, happens all the time. In the middle of the night, he said, I even see it sometimes. I go, no kidding.
Oh,
He goes, yeah. I said, well, what does it look like? He goes,
I need a drink. Hold on. Oh gosh, no,
like,
go.
I go, well, what does it look like? He goes, it's just a black thing, a black spot, like a shadow, and
Which
it's
is
like the
exactly
size
kind of
of,
what you described.
it's like the size of the cat. I said, are you kidding me? He's like, no. He goes, almost every night it comes I said, well, how long? And he goes, forever, because we put her down it was a few months after my mom died. I put her down because she was just vomiting everywhere and she was 17 and
Oh
like,
yeah.
it's enough. Anyway, he goes, yeah, in the middle of the night, she comes and she'll mess with my feet. And he says, I'm kicking. He says, sometimes I get up with my knife and I slice at the air. And I go, all these years? He goes, yes.
So
And I
how
said,
many years has this been going on?
I would imagine, I got the impression when he was talking, even while the cat was alive, because she slept with him.
That rules the spirit, cat spirit.
Right. Yeah. And so I'm like, oh my God. I said,
But
well, let me,
approximately how many years then?
he didn't say, but I'm getting the impression maybe a decade. I don't know. But I said, I go, well, I said, well, it's bringing to mind a dream I had 2 nights ago. So I pulled out my phone and I read it off to him. And I said, it's the first time, Chris, I felt like Lucifer reached into my dreams to talk to me. I said, I've had Jesus and God in my dreams before, but this was very different. He goes, really? I go, yeah. And I said, well, I'm just glad to know that you, me, and the dog can feel it and know it and sense it. And I said, well, instead of slicing at the air with your knife or kicking it, why don't you just say out loud, Jesus, 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 100 times or however long it takes? I said, because it worked for me last night. He's like, oh, I don't need to do that. And I go, well, you know that you're protected and whatever, and all you have to do, I told him the power of the spoken word and all that. And he's, oh no, I don't need, you don't need to do that, blah, blah, blah. And then as he's getting ready, he got a call from work. They were ordering burritos. So he's like, well, I got to get ready and get to work so he could get his burrito hot. And he goes, someday I'll tell you about when I went and looked for Lucifer.
Oh,
And I
oh
go,
gosh.
and then he gets up and goes to the bathroom. I hate to say this, but this big old, I could hear it for I'm like, oh my God. And right in that moment, I lost the phrase that he said. So as he came out and went to the bedroom, I went and sat with him while he's getting dressed. And Dixie and I do that a lot. And I said, remind me what you said just a moment about going and look. He says, yeah, I'll tell you sometime about going and looking for the devil. And I go, well, what do you do? I said, where are you? Whatever. I says that when you're out camping or hiking or he goes anywhere all the time. I'm always looking for him. He said, I want to destroy him. I was like, and he told me years ago, he told me this story about when he was out camping one time alone and he was walking down a path in the middle of the night. I think he says like around midnight or something. And he said, all of a sudden I just felt something and the hairs on the back of my neck went up. And he said, so I got out both my knives. He said, I didn't have a gun with me. I got out both my knives. And he says, I was just walking down the path going like this, saying, bring it on, motherfucker. Right. And I said, well, how long did that go on? He goes, for a little while. He said, and finally I just passed through it. And he's telling me this story again. And I said, was that the story from the thing? He goes, yeah. And I said, well, tell me about it again. So it's pretty much what I just said to you. And then after he was done, he goes, it was probably just a mountain lion I was sensing. And I'm thinking, you don't know what the hell it was. He goes, that's why I'm always watching horror movies. That's why I'm always looking at Bigfoot stuff and chupacabras and all that stuff. He said, I'm looking for the devil and I want to take him down. I said, well, why don't you use Jesus instead of your knives? And he's like, oh, I was like, and then he just bebopped off to work. I was like, are you kidding me? But yeah, I'm like, I always thought that I felt anything in my house, but I wonder if it doesn't follow him. But now that I'm more awake spiritually, that it's coming to mess with me too. You know what I mean? But like I'm like, well, it's good to know that you have this spiritual awareness and you not only can feel it and see it,
Yeah.
sense it. I said, that's good to have. And he goes, yeah, I just don't talk about it because I figure people are going to think I'm crazy. I said, well, you're not. And prior to all of that, I was telling him he had, the rubber knife I got that's like 12 inches long or whatever. He wanted a real one. So we found one on Amazon and we put it in our shopping cart. It's like $400. I'm like, geez. I'm like, let's just wait for Christmas or something. I'll surprise you with it. And so finally the Amazon had their shopping thing a couple days ago and it was only $150. I was like, oh my God, Chris, we got to get this now. So he's like, okay. So I ordered it and it came yesterday. So he's playing with, not playing with it, but he's looking at it and admiring it and looking on YouTube and all the people reviewing it and all this. And I said, and he started saying a lot of things that Nathan Reynolds says. And I said, you remember that guy you've seen me watch on TV? You said looks like Jesus? Because Nathan Reynolds does look like Jesus. And I go, yeah. He goes, yeah. And I said, well, he talks a lot like you and he loves knives just like you. And he talks about weapons of opportunity, because Chris will always be frustrated when he comes home from work and talks about wanting to take one of his pens because he likes cross pens. It's just a perfect silver little, pen. A pen and pencil set. And he goes, I just want to stab people in the eyes, right? When the first time he said that 20 years ago, I was like, I was like horrified. I'm like, ah. But I've become desensitized to it. And I said, but Nathan Reynolds talks just like you. I said, you got to watch this guy. So he talks about the Bible and he talks about, all these things like you do. And so I'm trying to get Chris to watch Nathan Reynolds. It's like,
Maybe he will.
but I'm like, I said, Chris, I said, I don't know if you want to call him special forces. I said, but he was certainly at the Delta level, and I was
Oh,
about,
now he's going to watch.
and I was about to say or higher, but I thought, no, don't go there because then he's going to think he's full of crap, I'm going to close the door, but I was blown away. Chris has got
Wow.
little poltergeist screwing with him for, decades. I mean, who knows? But he's like, oh yeah, I kick it, I swipe at it with the air.
Well,
And
isn't it funny that somebody who is as left brain as Chris is?
yeah, no, and I've always known that he has something spiritual going on because he will say what I'm thinking, or I will say what he's thinking. So we have this, thing between us, but I just
Decreasing the
didn't.
lighting in my office, or I just realized that it's too bright. There we
Oh,
go.
no, it's fine. But I just never knew that he had like spiritual insight like that. Maybe not personal insight, but certainly some spiritual abilities. Like, oh my God, all these years, and I never knew.
Well, it's very interesting then how could it not be? If he's so casual, a left brain guy to talk about left brain guy talking about right brain stuff.
Yeah.
Just casual. I kick it all the time.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm like, he goes, I see it run past, he pointing to the corner from the hallway into the kitchen, just right here. And he's like, yeah, I see it scurry across there all the time. I'm like, are you kidding me? And I said, well, Chris, I said, good spirits don't do that. If the good spirits around, it's generally you're gonna during the day, or whatever, but I'm like, I said, don't let it torment you. Why would you want it to continue on like that year after year? I said, just invoke the name of Jesus and make it go. And it's someone, he wants it to be there. I think he wants to have that little battle. I think he wants to confront Lucifer even in that small little way.
I wonder
You
if
know,
he's familiar with Ephesians 6, so we don't wrestle against flesh and blood. How
I
just
probably, I don't know.
logically, I'm going to take my knife and I'm going to get a spirit.
Right? He goes, I know I'm
Okay.
not doing anything, but he goes, it just makes me feel better. It's just his need to fight it, and I'm thinking he needs to watch Nathan Reynolds because he has that same fire, except Nathan has realized I can fight it with my pen. I can
Yeah.
fight it with my words. I can fight it with videos. Do you know what I mean? So, and that's a whole nother subject. Chris, I don't know if he's even aware I've published and I'm on YouTube and things are moving along. As I told him, I said I'm making a video today. I didn't say it today, it was like a week or two ago. And he's like, oh, okay. But he doesn't ask and I don't offer. So I'm like, I don't know what to do. It's kind of like the whole Alan Watt thing all over again. It's not hidden or a secret, but it's just not talked about.
Yeah.
And is it 5 years down the road, he's going to lose my mind because I kept a secret? And I'm like, well, it's not a secret. It's just you don't want to. And he doesn't ask about any of the SRA or like,
Yeah, that's if my wife, it's one thing. You and I are working together,
yeah,
but
no, I get it. I
house,
get it.
right,
Yeah.
right,
But
right, right.
it's just, and Tiffany said the same thing that we were talking about husbands, and she's like, "Yeah, my husband's the same. He doesn't ask, and I don't offer."
It's too close to home.
Yeah,
So,
and I was just like, "Well, okay, I guess this is the same thing going on here." But I just feel like since I published Lucifer's, I'm on
it's
his radar.
confirmation. It's
I'm on
confirmation.
his radar. I know, and yeah, so when
Well,
I
and then
read,
Ryan, Diana, just to again reassure you, spiritually speaking, it's interesting when this is as an aside, but hopefully this will be good news, right? I just use the Bible as my source of information. So
yeah,
whenever you get somebody talking about aliens and stuff, it's like, okay, I'm still gonna, I don't care what anybody says. That's going to be my guiding rule of thumb.
yeah, me too. Well, I
And,
shouldn't say
and, and so
too.
when you have people in the occult describing different entities, it's like, well, that's the blind leading the blind. So I'll tell you. So the reality is this, that first of all, Satan, formerly Lucifer, is just an angel, now one of the most
Yeah,
powerful, but
yeah.
still, right? So he's a finite being, and he took a third of the angels with him. So he has a military
He
structure.
does have limitations.
There. And so he can only do what God ultimately permits.
Exactly.
But he can, so it's that weird balance of here you felt it on your mattress, Dixie scrambles out, so it's obviously very real, but as you did appropriately, right? Well, I'm not going to fight this thing. So it's us trying to figure out, okay, how do we do this battle, knowing that ultimately God has won and God is in control? So it's nice that Paul speaks to, listen, we don't wrestle against flesh and blood, but then when you look at the amount of um, letters or words in scripture that are devoted to demonic activity, it's very little. It's very, very little, but Jesus wrestled with Satan, or Satan
Yeah.
came. So it's not that Satan's not powerful, but I think that's probably the right balance for all of us. It's okay, I'm just going to focus on God like Job did. Now, Job was under demonic attack,
Yeah.
but ultimately we still see Job and God. So it's that
Mhm.
intensity between him and God. But as you experienced, and so right, that, okay, we've got this thing going on in your home, but unlike an occultic, this is just me sort of wanting to really help bolster you that I don't believe, for instance, biblically, there's no such thing as a haunted house. I'll tell you why.
Yeah,
Because how,
Chris calls them
okay,
ghosts. I'm like,
okay, or
that makes
ghosts or whatever we want. But
yeah,
demons will use, Satan will use anything somebody's going to allow for us to give it power to. That's why the
exactly. Yeah.
crystal's a rock, and as you say, it's a beautiful thing that God has created. But if I'm going to become
Use
suspicious,
it with
there,
for
yeah,
bad
so
purposes, then of course
there you
Satan
go.
will say, great, here's my
There you go.
doorway. Yeah.
So your house is protected, but that's confirmation that okay, there's some battle going on here. And so me, so hopefully this, right, that I concur. You're on the right track. Satan really is pissed. So I just want to confirm then on your end. And so
Yeah, I've
you're
got
over the
no doubt.
target, right? You're over the target.
Well,
So
yeah, and just keep doing what I'm doing because that's my knife.
yeah,
And
yeah,
that's proof that he's feeling it.
yeah.
And
So I
whenever
guess,
I'm
right,
whacking
Satan's a
on
little Texan,
Ted,
right?
I told Chris, I said, that's part of what I do when I'm beating on Ted. I said, I'm beating on Lucifer
There you
himself,
go. There you go.
and I'm screaming, feel it,
There you go.
you
So
know,
I
and
guess I, as your coach, I'm going through it a little bit, but that's the price we pay. Fortunately, my son's going to address it. He's going to speak to
oh,
it.
good. Yeah.
But
But
I've
I'm like,
never, I was just shaking my head last night thinking, I never heard of a situation like this. And so now, as you're talking about, you got a little visitor at night, so to speak. It's like, okay, so as your
something's
coach, I'm getting
working.
it. But so it's confirmation, that you have right, you're doing the right thing. You got a
Well, that
powerful,
dream, yeah, I was like, why would he send me that dream? It was to see if he could, lure me away. And I'm like, no, I'm sorry. Like, okay, that failed. And now I got a little juju on my bed. And I'm like, well, that failed. So I'm like, what's next? But
well,
I'll just,
you're
I'll
the
just keep invoking the name of Jesus.
And
And
you're the equivalent in this space, so to speak, this realm, this like Paul. So you're the
I
equivalent.
don't know Paul.
Oh, the Apostle Paul. They wrote the majority of the books in the New Testament.
Yeah, I mean, I know he's like one of the main important guys, but
Yeah.
that's about it.
So he was the number one persecutor of Christians.
Yeah, you
Because,
said his name was Saul, which meant
yeah,
big, and then
that's
it
right.
became
That's right.
Paul, which means small.
That's right. So Satan would go after Paul like nobody's business.
Oh, wow.
Um,
But
because
as Christians, though, we're going to be persecuted.
there you go.
And I'm finally living as a Christian, not just some person. So I thought, okay, well, this is part of the package. Get
All right.
ready.
There we go.
Put on your seatbelt. But
Right. So
I'm like, yeah, that made me nervous and got my adrenaline going. And I was like, okay, just calm down. You're okay. Jesus has you.
there we go.
Just use your sword. And it worked. It's like,
So I guess I
Chris.
just on my end, the reason I shared that, I just want to affirm that, okay, you know what? Well, you're
on the right track.
You're
Yeah.
on the right track.
Yeah. So, and Melissa, oh my God, we talked, what was it, yesterday, the day before? She happened, so one of Alan's listeners contacted her, and this listener, I guess through email, and then they wound up speaking on the phone, but is a person who wants to expose pedophilia and wants to protect children, but she feels that the way to do that is from within the cult and to use white magic and use her witchcraft and be a little spy inside the thing. And Melissa's going, you're messing with dangerous things. You need to, whatever. And so this woman sent her, I was like a 2 or 3 hour phone call. Melissa's trying to help her and all that. And I'm like, Melissa, I said, the minute you sniffed something wrong, you should have just ended off right there. I said, you're allowing people into your life that are just vampiring your time away.
Mhm.
I said, I know that you wanted to help her. I know you wanted to whatever. It was like the same thing with Jolie, this woman who right after Alan died, I guess she would put Alan's videos up on Bitchute. And so Melissa and I both thought, oh, well, that's great because Melissa did the audio version of Alan. Jolie did the video version of Alan, and I did the written word of Alan. I thought, well, the three of us together can really kick ass, right? We got audio, visual, written, whatever. So this woman followed her to Texas. And Melissa actually went there and helped her move and close out her life and moved her down to Texas to find out that she was possessed by a demon and she was just there to sabotage her. And Melissa was trying to help her and save her and fix her. And I'm like, you got to cut that off.
Yeah.
Just cut ties and get her gone. And it took her like 9 months to finally do that. And after she did that, then there was this other guy from France who was an Allen listener, started attacking her and sending her sexually lewd emails. And I said, this is dangerous, Melissa. I said, you've got to just cut it off entirely. Who's to say this guy doesn't get on a plane, come to Texas and rape you? I said, this is dangerous.
Yeah.
You've got to cut ties. You've got to rebuke him. You've got to call Jesus into this. And that finally ended. But she just seems to draw into her these crazy Satan people. And I'm like, I feel bad because here I am with this whole satanic ritual abuse stuff. And I'm like, well, why am I not getting attacked like that? I'm like, because I don't allow it in.
And the tactic that Satan's going to use is different, right? Because he knows you know so much.
I guess, yeah. And I'm just like, Melissa, come on.
Yeah.
I mean, I know Alan had his share of attack from government and whatever. And I think some spiritual attack as well. But I think she feels like she has to not participate in it, but at least dabble and get her feet wet to try and fix it. I'm like, it's not fixable. It's not fixable. You need to just entirely cut it off and get it off your lines entirely. She just, I don't know. And I'm like, well, I'm thinking, is that why you're sick all the time? Because you keep farting around and crap like that? I don't know. But it just makes me wonder why she goes there. But it's her path
Yeah.
to
The
walk.
discernment should be.
Yeah, and so I guess all these years I always thought that she had I don't know, was better than me somehow
Mm.
because she was with Alan and had all this wisdom and knowledge, and I'm realizing I don't think so.
That's right. She was living with him, meaning, they were together.
Well, yeah, and she
But
learned a
you
lot.
studied every word. You're transcribing every word.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, she had her part, but it's very different because I'd use Dragon software so I would hear it and speak it at the same time, and then I'd pause after a couple paragraphs, check it for errors, and then go on. And so it flowed through me in and out for like not the whole
But you
7.
were listening and then speaking it?
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I did with yours for a while until I realized, oh, YouTube's got a transcript already. So I just copied and pasted it and delete the timestamps and add the grammar. So, but yeah, when you're transcribing, it moves
Wow.
through you, whether you're speaking it or typing it, it's moving through. It has a different effect. I was always trying to explain that to somebody, and until you do it, I don't know if you could understand it. Do you know what I
Oh,
mean?
it's an immersive experience.
I guess so, yeah. But but yeah, she knows his work, I guess, on the logical intellectual level.
Yeah.
But because it's the one thing I remarked on when she and I first started talking is we would just be having a conversation, and then all of a sudden she'd come out with a paragraph or two of what Alan would say, but she'd be saying it, and I'm thinking, wow, what are you doing? I never said anything to her. She still does it to this day, but I'm like, it needs to come from you, not these things you remember, what you remember Alan said. It needs to be you saying it in your words, not his. So it's just a weird experience. But she's getting drawn more and more into SRA. She mentioned she said, I think you had a great idea with me and Jon having an ongoing series about SRA. I said, well, that's fantastic. That's great. That's pretty much all I said. And she's going on and on about the satanic stuff. And then she brought up her childhood friend again. Her name's Nilda, about how just full of shit Nilda is and whatever. And she'll differentiate. She goes saying it's not like you. She's not having actual memories ever, but she's, getting sucked into this, what I would imagine is maybe some sort of, cult of SRA where people just think it's cool and it's a conspiracy theory, and then let me dive into a rabbit hole and play around in it kind of thinking. But I just
Yeah,
find it
that's right.
fascinating.
That's right. Okay, that's extreme, right? There's people, for instance, who watch horror movies that just, I don't know, but then look at Chris. Chris is doing it for a purpose. Um,
Yeah, I
but
think
unless you know, right? So it can be this dark fascination, but they haven't got clue one that it's real.
right. Yeah. I'm like,
It'd be like,
and the thing
right,
that gets
walking into
me,
a concentration camp and suddenly realize, not knowing that this was really real. The property
yeah,
you walked
well, that
onto.
that was what I experienced because it
Yeah.
was intellectual until I stood on that ground and felt the death there. I was like, oh my God.
And of all people, that is spiritually sensitive. So I mean, that's why Satan's so angry. Because, Diana, because of what you experienced, and this is what makes you so unique. So I'll just confirm and affirm this for you. Not that you need me to do it, but for you, it's because of what you saw and experienced, unfortunately, it's just very matter of fact for you. Meaning the spiritual realm is as real
As the
as
rest. Yeah.
the
Even
average
though I
person doesn't.
suppressed it for a lot of
Yeah,
years,
but
but
the average person doesn't have that sense. So the fact that it's like Chris, the situational awareness. So because the veil was torn for Chris, he sees the world, the internal scanning and just everything, the filter.
yeah, he
Right?
sees the evil everywhere and it
There you go.
infuriates him.
There you go.
Yeah.
So for you, in like Wizzy, does Wizzy have a new name? Not that she should. Just
Not yet.
Okay.
I'll show you, Wizzy.
Okay, so
I
all of your spiritual parts, you just have that it's very real to you.
yeah, there she is. She's the whirlwind.
Okay, there we go. Right. So the
I put
average
her on
person
each
can't.
page. She encompasses everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the average person can't conceptualize of what you, matter of fact, know. And so
Yeah.
it's exactly like Paul. Paul was saying, listen, I want you all to know we don't wrestle against flesh and blood. And then out
Mm.
it comes. And he's laying out a military structure. That sentence in the Greek, my Greek prof, one time, he camped on that. He said, let me tell you why Paul uses this. So it says principalities, powers, rulers of the air. He said that's a military structure.
I
So
know.
in the
Yeah, I
construction of the Greek.
when
And
you
so,
say that, I know it instantly
yeah. So
because
that's
that
why,
was the structure put into my mind
there you
file
go. There you
was
go.
that military
So
structure.
so just knowing that, okay, we got this stupid demon running around, you know how to combat it. And Chris has
Well,
been,
yeah, why not use your strongest weapon and say, poof, go away. Poof.
if you're,
And I was reminded as well of the experience of, when in that ritual, when Jesus went in my body,
there
and
you
all
go.
he had to do was be present, and everybody disappeared. So
There you
I
go.
know that it works,
There you go.
right? I'm like, why not use it? He's in there.
There you go.
He's me and I'm him. You know what I mean? Not to say I'm Jesus, but it's there.
That's right.
So why
Well,
screw
that's right.
around?
Think about the verse. He who is within us is greater than he who is within the world.
Oh, yeah, I didn't know that. So
So it's a
I find
way.
it fascinating that they both want to just screw around with it. I'm like, why give it power?
That's
It's
right.
like saying, here, vampire, come suck on my neck. Like, why?
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. But I
Okay.
guess
Well, that's confirmation that
on the right path. Oh, I did a TED talk earlier. I don't know if you want to see that.
absolutely.
Okay, so I
And
thought,
I guess the reason I just shared my little thing is it's so bizarre. So again, view that as confirmation that, yeah, I never would have believed it. But
well, and the fact that the words came out of your mouth, she's a psychopath, and of all people who knows it's you,
yeah.
I'm like, wow,
Yeah.
that's quite a,
Anybody that goes down the dark path
well,
can.
it's like now you want to go down the rabbit hole. How'd she get there? Who's messing with, it's like,
Well, I think
that's for you to figure out. I
I think
mean,
it's the root of bitterness, right, is very powerful. That's why Paul warns it as well.
yeah,
So,
I guess so. So this is today, and I watched the video of you and I on doing the TED Talk on the laptop. And when you speak, the camera goes to you. So I don't know if I want to air that because it'll obviously show that you're my counselor.
yeah.
So I could cut that out, but I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I may not put that one online, but here's today. Are you gonna go? There we go. I got a tripod, so
Oh, okay, good, good, good.
new setup here. Got myself a tripod. I thought I'd film it in landscape instead of the other way. Seems to go up on the internet better. Who knows? We'll see. Anyhow, gonna have myself TED Talk here. And I've had 2 TED Talks just focusing on my knee. Oops.
Good
And
for you for doing this, Diana. It's going to help
my knee's
so.
about 90% better. Blown away. Been suffering with it for 8 weeks. So actually, let me change this a little bit. Try to get that sun off of there. Okay, good. Anyhow, we're gonna work on my knee today. Plus, maybe y'all think this is crazy, but I felt like there was a little bad spirit messing with me last night, spooked my dog out. She had to go sleep with my husband because she couldn't, and she always sleeps with me. So anyhow, just gonna beat on Lucifer for a while. Yeah, baby. Right? We need to eat. Which hurting my knee. Rip, 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 nasty. You're nasty, awful, terrible.
Good.
We're coming for you. Make us do awful things. Make us do it. Make us stop.
It is so good to see you doing this, Diana.
We're people. You make me do it. I would never, ever, ever do it. Ever. Ah! I don't know why when I watch it I laugh, but
Well, it's right, and more parts of you are getting healed by watching as well.
it's like they giggle, thinking, "Yeah, that's awesome."
Right? It's validated for it. It's just really tapping into everybody say this is beautiful. Good. Those visceral or guttural screams is just that's the healing. That's what most survivors are afraid to tap into. So it's so healing.
All of
That's so good. I should get a TED now and just
it. You should.
now that I know what's going on my end.
It helps.
Yeah.
No, it
Yeah.
does. Yeah. Miss.
Good.
Because Chris has this in real life now. It's razor sharp. This was a new move someone came out with here. I
Ah,
knew just how to turn the knife and everything. I was like, wow, okay.
right there's confirmation. I mean, where'd you get that move?
Right? Look at my face.
What happened?
I said, look at my face.
Oh, yeah.
Nasty fuckers.
Good.
Disgusting debauch. Gotta fix the rubber knife. You die. You die. I don't know why I want to gouge their eyes out.
Well, look at what that stupid Mary John guy,
Yeah.
when you said that he pulled her eyes out.
Oh God, yes. Forgot all about that.
I haven't forgotten.
Well, I've had so much. It's like
Yeah, oh, that's right, Diana. But yeah, the fact that you want to go for the, I mean, not only is that normal, but if you saw that kind of thing, then
get to have my meat anymore.
good.
Never. I realized that somehow along the line, they knew exactly what knee to go for. Always. fucking bone.
Is there, like in those Masonic little, where they, if you disclose, then you slit your throat? Is there something about that
No,
particular
no,
name?
I just somewhere along the line they decided to focus always on the same knee. It's like maybe for each person they pick a joint and know to always go after that joint. But I mean, think about your knee, you have to walk on it. So every day it's being triggered all the time, constantly. So good for this one.
You may want to address that, right?
Only
Because
6 minutes.
good for you.
So,
Look at you.
I guess that's good.
What a workout. And honestly, this is right.
So anyhow, just wanted to bring you along. Maybe vicariously through
It
me
is.
and get some of your rage up, but I'm telling you, you need to do this for yourselves. And if you can't afford any of this, beat on your bed. Beat on your bed and holler.
Good,
Just
good.
listening to Nathan Reynolds talk about, he talks about a lot of things, as if any of you are familiar with him, but he said once that he would go into his car with the windows all rolled up, which was in the garage with the garage door closed up, and he would just sit there and scream and scream and scream. You've got to get it out of your body. So anyhow, that's it for today. Thanks for coming on. And we'll see you next time.
Beautiful. This is so perfect.
Well, I'm glad you approve. I was.
Well, yeah, whether I prefer or no, because the guttural screams is what, I mean, you're just tapping into, right? Whether somebody had parts or not, but of course, if they have that degree, that's the healing part, finally connecting with the righteous anger, the righteous indignation. And so each of those, right, you're probably tapping into different parts. And so you are allowing them, each part's being healed. They come back, and that's how they come back alive, so to speak. They've all been shut down. They had their voices taken, so to speak. And now,
It's the scream that they couldn't scream back then.
there.
Yeah. So yeah, I totally get that.
But
I
to
was
show
thinking
people,
when I first started,
yeah.
I would just whack at it. I wouldn't really verbalize
There
much,
you go.
and if I did, it was not that, like you say, that guttural, deep down, just let yourself go kind of thing.
Every cell in the body, right, is just, and that's why I liken it to dry heaves. Is just when it comes out, and that's why we avoid it. That's why anybody avoids it. Like,
Oh
I don't want to tap
yeah.
into this, because if I tap into it, I don't know if I'll ever come out. I don't know if, like, I'm going to go crazy. I'll never come back. And so that's what's so powerful by you showing people that visually your guttural screams don't last all that. I mean, they're intense,
Yeah,
but
but when you're
the
done,
average
you're done.
person, the average survivor is afraid to tap into it because they think at that moment they'll be gone forever. So you're helping them
Yeah.
see that, oh,
Yeah,
okay.
6 minutes and you're good. You're back to normal.
That's
And not only
that's
just normal, but you're better than normal.
there you go.
So I'm excited to see how my knee feels. It takes like 2 or 3 hours for it to sink in. It's interesting. But yeah, I was to see how it feels this afternoon. But I would say it's 90% better. 90% just out of
Yeah, we can do a study together. This is how to,
two
right?
sessions, I'm like, wow.
So we're saving people going to the doctor. Here you are, right? They don't have to take as much Advil.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, other than, the thing that I did the one I did with you, my neck and shoulders were really fried by the end of the day. So I did have to take some Advil, but
Yeah, no,
it
but
was
for the
okay.
pain, to think that,
But by the next morning, it was just gone. So I don't know. I was
but as
like,
you're saying that, then your knee, talk about body keeps the score.
it truly does. And I remember, being in Himmler's castle and that guy kicking it. And I remember 2 or 3 different times in my life tripping and smashing the same knee. So I wonder if it was a part inside. Maybe I was thinking about something I shouldn't have, and that part made me go down on that knee. Do you know what I mean? Like the internal stop
Yeah, yeah,
the guard saying, no, don't go there with your thoughts, trip and fall kind of thing. But it's always that knee. And I have just a vague recollection of something in the Masonic hall or with my grandma, and maybe they, kicked it, maybe not severely, but just, something. But I think more of it came from my own self-injury.
yeah.
But that somehow a part in there is saying, "Ooh, you're getting too close. Let's trip you." Because once you trip and injure yourself, your thoughts are completely somewhere else. You've already forgotten where you were.
That's right. That's right.
And that came from when I was in the New Age. Somebody said to me once that when you sneeze, it's because you're having a thought that you think you shouldn't. And I always thought, well, that's interesting. And so for years after that, I would pay attention when I sneeze. What was I just thinking?
Hmm.
So I would always try and trace it
Yes.
back.
So tapping into the,
And so now that practice of doing that, and sometimes, John, it was true. I think they said that it was indicated truth or something. I don't remember what it was, but it's like God wanted me to hear that to practice it so that now when I'm working on my knee, right, he's like, okay, you got that practice. What were you just thinking? You just screwed your knee up. What were you just thinking?
good.
Rather than focus on the pain and the
Yeah,
injury.
that's perfect because right there, that's what a panic attack is.
Oh, yeah, because you had some sort of thought or you
So the
touched on
answer to a
something.
panic attack then is you got to go beat the
Go
hell out.
back to what you were just thinking about. You got to
There you
pull
go.
out of the pain and go back there.
And
Yeah.
if everybody can associate, so Diane, this is perfect, right? So my supposition is, and you're proving it out, that every issue we have, when I'm being triggered, when I'm feeling, we got rage under the surface. So if we can finally get the rage out, then that stops. So the symptoms and the anxiety, the depression, panic,
Well, and I'm
that's
sitting here
rage,
almost convinced now that people, with diabetes and all of these health problems,
right?
yeah, if you're eating like crap, that's a factor, obviously. And if you're not moving your body, that's a factor. But that I think that has to come from pent up crap,
There we go. There we go. Which is
and
anger,
you're just
right?
eating yourself alive. And
Yeah.
just I don't know, it's crazy.
On the body's release, it's in that fight flight syndrome. So the adrenaline
I
is
gotta
dumping
check
in.
my plug here. Hang on.
Yeah. So it's, the adrenaline will release the cortisol, and then the cortisol affects. So there's always that all the way down to the
Yeah,
mitochondrial level.
I'm gonna
So,
feed Dixie too. Yeah.
so to be able, they speak in
Excuse
terms of
me.
the different videos that I watch talk about an inflammatory, all those conditions come from our body being inflamed. So that's a very, right. So we got to get the inflammation out, which is getting the anger out. That's what'll bring the calm down.
Yeah. Yeah. And society teaches us not to be or get angry.
And especially in Christian churches, right? The greatest pushback I have, the greatest challenge in helping people understand this is legitimate is, helping them understand the reality of imprecatory prayers. And
Mhm.
God preserved half the book of Psalms is for venting.
Excuse me, I haven't had breakfast.
No, that's fine. Right. But to watch, even last night, bless her heart, or the other day, have a 76-year-old survivor. She's just starting to tap into stuff. And bless her heart,
76.
right?
Wow.
So we're camping on the theology of forgiveness. And that's
Mhm.
where she's at right now. She says, John, I've been listening to all your videos on forgiveness. I have questions. So the house of cards will come tumbling down once this. So is it legitimate? I thought that we can't get close to anger. It's not our purview. It's not our. So, and then she says, well, no, it's, so she's doing an intellectual approach, but she's not wanting to touch it viscerally. So to think that God preserves those psalms for
Mhm.
visceral release.
Yeah. Well, and Chris loves that whole book. That's him and his brother talk about it. Oh, Psalms this and Psalms that. So they
They get it, right? They tap into it.
except Chris and his brother, I mean, his brother is drinks just as bad as Chris does, so. But that's when their rage comes out, is when they're drunk. And
Yeah.
it's not a healthy way of doing it. I mean, it's a release, I guess, but not, they don't have the intellectual connection with it. They're just mad,
Right.
One time Chris did this. He found out that his brother was going to go to jail, right? And Chris stood just a couple feet away and he goes like this, he goes, just this, and I swear to God, John, I was like 4 feet away. I felt the air, the vibration of it,
Mhm.
not hit me, but I could see and feel the air move. Oh, it's like, holy crap. So just this roar. And it was funny because after that, at the end of the day, we had sex, and it was one of the very few times he wanted to have face-to-face, one-on-one intercourse. And I was like, okay. Because that's what I've always wanted. But I thought, geez, it's fucked up. It took this to get there. But
You got a lot of wisdom.
yeah, but he was just, it's like he was facing down Satan himself in that moment. I'll never forget it, ever, ever. But he's so powerful, John. So powerful. If you're in his presence, I mean, that was the first thing it struck me when I met him, is I thought he's so powerful. And I can't tell you how or why or in what manner. And his good friend of like 33 years, they worked together, and now he's retired and they still hang out and go camping. But he said, Chris, you ooze, you ooze. And Chris, like, what do you mean I ooze? He says, you ooze. I said, Carlos is trying to say the same thing I say to you. You're powerful. Your energy just goes out there. It's powerful. He can draw people in or repel them off. He's
Yeah,
powerful.
so that would speak to, imagine he's sitting on that level of rage. Righteous and around some level. We've got
I'm
righteous.
sure it's righteous.
And then they gave him a chemical
Oh,
boot. And so that's where, as he's seeing, like as you talked about, there was blood in there. So that's what's so powerful about imprecatory prayer. It saves us from tapping into in real time with a real person, because we may take it too far and then all of a sudden we've become unjust. That sounds strange. Now, the massive perpetrators, you can't take it too far, right? That's where,
right.
but like in those situations, whether road rage or, right, where all of a sudden it can tap into this little rivulet, taps into the other thing. Now it's misdirected. So it's such a gift to be able to give that to the Lord. So I don't have to get close to the edge. Now, in your case, when you're venting, you can't get enough of that, right? You've got to get
Right.
that.
Yeah.
But for
Yeah.
Chris, probably you can imagine then he taps, he's not only sitting on that volcano, but then they energize it with that chemical. And so he's not in his right mind. So he's just a pure killing machine. And now,
Yes.
how do you process realizing I not only took it there, meaning I did the just or whatever it is, I went to the line that was okay, but to try to make sense of and then work through that guilt.
Yeah, I know.
All
I
right, he's going to
know.
have to, just like exactly what you're doing with, but yours is much more profound because it was as a child, but it was all you were being forced to do it. That's why Chris has a different path he's going to have to take because
Yeah.
as an adult, but he was in the military. It's just so
He knows, he can see. He's furious with Lucifer, just furious, and God, which
see
I
there, he's
which
going to
I
have to
understand now.
absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, but oh geez, I forgot.
So great venting video. You're going to
Thanks.
help so many people because you're going to help them give themselves permission and you're showing them. You
Yeah,
got the
it's not
step-by-step video.
pretty. It's not pretty, but this is
But
what
there's
you
so much you're demystifying. It's like, oh, so here's a training video. You mean that's oh, okay, this is how it's done. But then for them to be able to see the guttural, and then you can, it's for a moment of intensity, then you come back out. That's the greatest fear that a survivor has. That if I tap into that, I'm
I'll
gone.
lose my mind. Yeah, so I don't know that I
There.
ever feared that. Maybe I did
A
in the
lot of
beginning,
them do. A lot of them do.
but
Just on some level, it's like
just
if I
to
can.
just
So it's
smack it. You don't, I mean, to just start out whacking. I
there
wish
you
I
go.
had
There you go.
videotaped those, but I needed to have that privacy at first because
Yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't
No,
know
that's
what was going on or how it was gonna go or what. But geez, there was something you just said that made me think of something else I wanted to tell you about, and I can't think of what it is now.
about Chris and his anger.
No,
And then you said the woman that had a bad.
no, it's before that. It's something unrelated to that, but oh well, it'll come up when it comes up then. So I've thought about it 3 or 4 times, and then I keep forgetting over the past week or so. But um, anyway.
Okay. So
And maybe
spirit.
it'll come up. Oh, I had another. Oh, I think. Oh, this is. Am I sharing? I don't think so.
No, I don't. I
I have
don't
my
think.
journal from last night. Not a whole lot's been going on journal wise for a couple days. But this was this morning. Move that, I guess. Ah, it says, I woke up in the middle of the night and remembered that Dad used to be smoking a cigarette or joint and blow the smoke in my crib, changing table, wherever. And I used to cough really badly, like as a baby. He'd be blowing it in my face as I'm coughing now.
He had to have been, as you had indicated. What? Yeah. Well, your dad was evil, right? But
Well,
it
and
does.
he digitally raped me then too. So I think it
But do
was,
you think there had to be something in those cigarettes? Those just weren't normal cigarettes. Why are you going to blow
I don't
cigarettes?
know. I don't know. And I thought, well, why wouldn't I be, screaming or crying? So maybe you're right. Maybe there was something in there.
Or maybe that's how you keep the kid from screaming.
Yeah, maybe so, because you're, well, I mean,
That's
imagine
okay.
an
That's how.
infant or a 1-year-old being digitally raped and not whatever. And it brings me to Kinsey because that's what he would do is rape children. And when they screamed, it was his notion that they were orgasming,
Yeah, that's what he.
right?
That's
And I
how
always think to myself, well, my grandparents lived, I think, only an hour or two from Indiana State University, which I think is where Kinsey was.
correct.
So it was in the air or area, and you've got, he's studying these people, which I'm sure were in the area, if not, all over the US, I know, but that's where his home base was. So I'm thinking, I wonder if my grandparents and dad didn't participate, and I'm a part of those darn studies, you know, because my dad would be that anal and record things like that. I thought, gee, I mean, I don't know when Kinsey did that was like the 50s. And so for me, I was born in 65 and I was in Indiana 65 through 70.
I
So
just had I was just talking to another SRA survivor. Where are my notes? And they were talking about she and her husband. They've been married for probably 30 years now. But he was telling me how one of the key guys that started everything from the full gospel mission to in the charismatic movement, a key figure who was heavily involved with the KKK and Masons. Indiana, Indiana is a big part. Indiana and
Well, apparently, I
Kentucky.
learned through one documentary, I don't know if it's true, but that the Indiana Masonic Lodge, like the state lodge, is like one of the most important in the country. And I don't know why, and I haven't been able to verify that, but
And so then, you wonder if the Kinsey Institute is there for a reason.
exactly, why Indiana? What's there? So you got the Masonic Lodge or whatever, but
So that's a major Masonic lodge.
I heard that in a documentary and I went, no shit, that's where Kinsey was. I remember thinking that. And I haven't been able to locate that video again. And it wasn't even, done by a truther or something. It was just like kind of
No,
a
no.
mainstream documentary. I was like, well, that's interesting. I guess I'll go back to this.
Wait, and it just hit me then. So really, then Freemasonry is the greatest joke. I mean, they're laughing all the way to the bank. It's right out there, but it's just a complete cover for pedophiles.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. Because that's their whole thing for did you watch that William Schnobelin 2 hour video where
No.
he talks about in masonry that as they climb the
Oh, I'm sorry.
degree,
That's right. Okay, I haven't finished watching. I have not finished watching that one. So,
yeah, well, at the end he'll tell you, well, their big secret is that the more men they can anally rape, that anus is some sort of entrance to some sort of luciferic power position where they get to rule their own planet, be the lord of another planet.
which is almost Mormon doctrine. The last part of what you said, that's what Mormons
I
teach.
know. And Mormons are Masons, right? Or have that factor in there. So they believe that the more anal rape they can do, specifically anal rape, but any kind of rape, but the anal rape gets them points to be a lord of a planet. This is the delusion that Lucifer's given to them. I'm like, are you kidding me? How can you
So
even get to that?
Mormonism then, because that is that last part, right? Every Mormon is taught, every missionary, that's what they're doing. They're going to become God of their own planet.
Yeah, of their
So,
own world or universe, whatever. I heard even that the more wives they have, that for each wife they get to rule another planet. I heard that on a normal
which then
document.
the religion, the overt religious system of Masonry is Mormonism.
It sounds like it. I mean, I don't know
But
much
then
about
also
it.
Baptist, as you're saying, but isn't that
Yeah, and so like, what kind of ego do you got to have to want to rule a
thank
planet?
you. Thank you. That's
I'm
right.
like, come on. I mean, how ridiculous, and that you're gonna get it through raping children? Are you kidding me? And then the best one is a pure male boy. I'm like, it makes no sense to me that people would believe in this. But if you're that immersed in it, whatever
Well, it gives
brainwashing,
permission. It
and
gives
they've
cover.
become
Right?
retrobates already because they've
Yeah.
already raped and done all their crap, that I can see how they would get there, but it's just when you look at it from the outside, it's like, are you out of your mind? I mean, they are out of their mind.
So it
And,
makes sense then that if they're harming a child, your dad's blowing smoke. So literally, so it didn't necessarily, then the cigarettes could be normal cigarettes. The kid that you're
or
raping,
not, I don't know. I mean,
the kid
where's
that you're
mom?
raping is starting to scream and you blow smoke. Now you've silenced them.
Oh, because they're coughing. Oh,
Yep.
that makes sense. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Anyways, I said that was last night. And I said this morning I woke up to realize that Dad used to smoke all the time, wherever and whenever he could, be it with a cigarette or marijuana or whatever that was in that bag when he was suffocating me. Because again, he put smoke in there. That was like a consistent factor throughout all of it. And then there was Jack after that who smoked like a chimney as well. And I'm just sitting here realizing that every single person in my family smoked, even my mom, her sister, her mother, brother, her stepdad, everywhere we went, there was smoking. Angie, Mary, and Mom all quit smoking around the same time. I think somewhere in my late 20s or early 30s is when they quit, but I continued on. I quit for those 4 years in Dallas. Now, this is the same time they quit smoking cigarettes. I was starting to remember the sexual abuse. So I can see why I continued on because I'm, whatever. They're suppressing it more. And for me, it's coming up. So I quit for those 4 years in Dallas. And then I quit for 1 year in California until I met Chris. And he smoked. And so I started again. And then I finally quit for 8 years with Chris. So it always pissed me off that while I was in the early stages of it, it never occurred to him, not ever once, to support me and perhaps smoke outside or in the garage. Just was smoke anywhere, it was irrelevant to him. I always thought, what a selfish fucker that he wouldn't want to try to help me out. And at the same time, it would reduce his smoking, but he never did. I said, but I managed, and then it didn't even bother me or cross my mind until all this SRA memory stuff came up. And even then, it was in early June. So I was remembering for a good 8 or 9 months before I started smoking. Because that's the thing I've been talking to my parts about. It's like, well, I didn't have to have this to remember all that stuff. So why? Anyway, it's just that's the thing that's preying on my mind now is I gotta quit smoking. I need to just do it, and I'm not. I'm slacking and cutting myself slack, but I'm not going to beat myself up over it either because I know I'll get there. I'm
Yeah.
just not there right now. I don't want to go through the work, but anyhow, but I think it's probably
That's what Ted is there, right? For
well,
the
and I told
training.
myself, and I forgot to do it today. So next time, but when I beat on Ted, I need to beat on the lungs, on the lung.
Oh, that's a good one.
So that because that's what it's affecting my lungs and the circulatory system. And I thought, well, maybe that'll help move it out, you know. But so that's all I have for a journal, which I thought, that's kind of refreshing. I don't have eight
Right.
pages and 20 new parts,
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Okay.
and I haven't done anything with this. I feel like this is finished. With one exception, I need to switch around Shooter 6 and Clay because Clay came first and Shooter 6 second, and I have it reversed. So I need to fix that. And then
Yeah,
this,
Diana, if you don't mind, let's go back to the emotion one just for a moment here.
okay.
So describe this to me. I mean, it's self-evident, but talk to me more about this particular page.
Well, it came from after I figured out, Gray talked about the mind files and how they are sorted. And I sat down and did the categories. I thought, well, okay, what are my categories? And if I were to give them a color, what color would they be? And for me, it was 6 colors. And I thought, well, the rainbow has 7, the Roy G. Biv, right? The only color I don't have here is indigo. I would go from blue to purple, but as a child, who thinks about indigo?
Oh, there's an indigo. I didn't even know that's
Yeah, it's red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet, right? Roy G. Biv. That's how you remember the color spectrum or the rainbow. But as a child, I didn't know that. I just, you see red. I knew red, yellow, and blue. And if you combine them, you get orange, green, and purple. So I thought, well, that makes sense. A 6-year-old would think that way. Okay, I knew that much about color. You learn that in kindergarten or earlier. And for it, just red went with emotions. Orange seemed to fit the body. And also, I was thinking about chakras when I was doing this, why I was thinking about chakras, but they break it down. Do you know what a chakra is in the New Age?
Yeah, I mean, theoretically, I do.
Yeah, like the root chakra is your groin, your sexual area. That's red. That's your connection to the earth, right? And then orange is procreation, your in between your solar plexus, your navel area. And
Okay.
then yellow is your solar plexus, which is your, I don't want to say mind. I think in the New Age they consider yellow like your intuition mind slash. Anyway, then you get to the heart is two colors. It's pink and green, meaning pink is the love energy and the green is healing. And that which doesn't really work with my chart. And then blue is your throat, which is communication. And then indigo is your third eye, your psychic abilities, or purple, I should say. And the top of your head is white, which is your connection to spirit and God. So
Huh.
for me, the bottom three kind of, I don't know, just how it worked
No,
out for
that makes
me.
sense.
But yeah, I learned just this week that the chakras were only given color coding in the 70s. I thought this was like an ancient thing, but apparently no, somewhere in the 70s when I learned it from Alan's talk about Blavatsky. That's right.
Oh,
He was
oh,
saying, yeah, they only assigned colors to these chakras in the 70s to be a part of the new age,
yeah.
whatever. So it's programming. But
Okay.
okay, back to this. Yeah, I just
Okay, so let's go back to the actual chart, the graph without
okay. So
emotions.
that's how the colors came
Okay, and
about.
that makes sense. That's helpful. Okay, so talk to me about who you've put. I mean, it's self-evident, but walk me through.
Well, I put the happy people up here.
Okay.
These are the ones that experienced joy and how Teddy was singing her song, skipping down the alleyway. And when I ride my bike or when I went skydiving or the adventurous part of me, I always feel very happy out
Okay.
in nature. This section is like the sadness, the despair, the just yeah, sadness and despair. This on the bottom is fear and anxiety,
Yeah.
right? Because COVID, we were all sucked into fear, nonstop fear. Louisa, she kind of perplexed me because I thought she was categorized as something else. And I realized, no, I picked that picture for a reason. She was in despair. She left Milwaukee after the rape with the SRA rape with the mobster family. She escaped to Dallas and now she's with a gay man donating blood for food. I'm like, what's going on with me? I was in despair. I was, anxious and scared but I think that's right. I think Louisa was up in despair, but she had lots of anxieties and fears. So she kind of floats in between.
Yeah.
Danica was after El Paso, where I was tortured, and my boyfriend and I would go out. He was that lovely boyfriend that I had that wanted to know what happened, and I wouldn't tell him because I was terrified he was going to be harmed, right? Or killed or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
So that was anxiety and fear and whatever. And new kids just being scared. I'm in a new school, I'm in a new environment. What's happening? Just, Kathy was the little girl walking out into the lake because my dad wanted me. I was having anxiety and fear and freaking out. And then when he drowned me, I split into Karen.
Yeah.
And Booker was the one who lay in bed at night, anxious dad was going to come get me. Nancy was nightmare. She had nightmares and was scared to go to sleep because the witches were going to come get her. Susie was after we moved to Iowa and I was screaming in the middle of the night having nightmares. And then what did I call her? Beth? Oh, Billy. Yeah, that was Bullet, who was terrified in Himmler's castle, terrified into not talking. So this is anxiety and terror and fear. And this section here, and if you'll notice the little faces, the happy's up there and the sad is over here and the, anxiety and all that's down here. And so I put anger here. Lance was the one given drugs like Chris was in the army to pump up the
There
adrenaline
we go.
so
That's her
that you
job.
could
Yeah.
kill. That was who I used to think was Lucifer, but it's my part called Lance. Trip was, you know who Trip is, buried and furious, and Michael was the split off of Blue about the righteous indignation and
That's right.
furious that it's happening and fighting for my life. And Owie was when Dad would pinch and poke and prod at me as a child, and I would fight at him, right? And I'm just now realizing that's probably when he blew the smoke
Yeah.
to calm me down.
Or so you couldn't scream.
Right, right. Yeah.
You got all this,
Teresa,
that's interesting. You got all this rage, but you can't get it out.
yeah, yeah, but the rage was there and then split off. Um, to I'm not sure who.
Because
Oh,
as a matter of fact, it's almost worse. Better not tap into your rage and tap in and not be able to get it out.
mm-hmm.
So that's what,
And I was sick and all that. So
yeah,
I think that's who it split off into was
yeah.
sick. And Teresa was Tattletale, the one that Trip told mom everything, but then she got tortured. So she was furious about being tortured. Randy was the one that dad made me scrape, rub, the one who had to scrape the spray paint off concrete, which is impossible.
Yeah.
And started biting and chewing on my nails. I had the rage. I was ripping my nails apart while I was rubbing, and then after that, I would bite my nails down to the quick, which I'm pleased to say I have beautiful long nails now. Scratchy was the one who used to rip my skin apart, I think, because I would feel the electrical from the electrocutions. And then Scratch was when Chris had me on the bed and was being a motherfucker, and the only way I could get him off me was I allowed myself to tap into my because I remember starting the scratch and stopping it. It was with this finger and thinking, oh no, don't do it. And the rage came up inside of me and said, fuck you, mother. And I just scratched his face. It was like a half-inch gouge right there. And then years later, again, he was being a motherfucker and had me cornered. And I thought I tapped into my rage and I punched him. I'd never punched anybody in my life before, but I punched him. And I stood up and he backed up. And I thought, surely he's going to hit me back, but he never did. So I hit him I punched him 5 times. He never raised his hand to
And
me.
where did you punch him?
Right here in the kitchen. Oh, in the face. Just bam, bam. He left himself wide open. I kept thinking, why isn't he
Okay.
defending himself? But I thought, fuck him. It was just, it's like I needed him to know I've had enough.
Yeah.
And he changed after that. So that's
It
this.
probably took that, well, right. Okay, let me ask you a question now about that. And that was extremely helpful. We hadn't had a chance to, go one. I mean, we have in the
Yeah.
past. That was Okay, now here's what I'm thinking. So let me ask you with this, just as far as moving the ball down the field, the process work.
I should put Ted in this section.
Okay, now if the key to the healing is, think in terms of knapsacks, every time you're beating that, you're giving another knapsack back.
Yeah, I guess that's what I was doing with Crib.
Okay, now, so the key to the healing is the, and so what I'm wondering, what I'm thinking about, so let's process this a little bit because this will be really key. Look at how many you have in the anger, but
I know.
my hunch is this. So this will be good for, because you're going to be the resident expert, meaning it's on the inside of you. But my hunch is that you're going to end up having, so maybe I'll ask a reverse question, but where I'm going is this. As others start to realize and tap into their own anger, you wonder what's going to happen. My hunch is like, okay, Trip holds a lot of and Lance and Michael, in a way, they hold everybody's anger. And so the healing will take place to the extent that really everybody's emotions are starting to, the repertoire or the
Well,
space,
these
they're going to be able
guys,
to start to experience more of
yeah.
a full range of emotions. And so I'm wondering, so this will be interesting, maybe even a separate page, like as Trip taps into his own anger, then
Who
is
is
what's
he
going,
triggering?
right? Then as others are tapping in, is it decreasing the amount of anger? Because Trip has his own anger. So the premise is that group right there. So I guess this is what I'm thinking as I'm processing that. That group right there held everybody, their own anger and everybody else's. So as the process is going on, as you're working with Ted and getting it out, so this may be an interesting separate page in and of itself. Are you noticing any changes in the
Other parts.
the container of anger now is so each of them were container of their own anger and others. So as others are tapping into their anger, is it now shifting? Meaning this page is perfect. I'm just wondering, the journey of anger, is it starting to change where others are finally tapping into their anger?
Yes, yes. Oh
So
yeah.
it's almost like you could add like a
Danica's had her turns. So has Nancy, and all of these fearful parts
good,
had
good.
their turn. Sandy, um, I think so far just Sandy has taken some whacks, and she's,
You'd say they're becoming more familiar and comfortable with their anger.
yes, for sure. Yeah. I mean,
So if
all
you
the
were to
parts.
do a set, this is really good. If you
Because
were to
as
do,
I'm in there, maybe I'm hitting my knee. Well, 5 or 6 different parts have had knee issues.
that's right, that's right.
And one of them might be in despair, and one of them might be in fear, and one of them might be tortured. But yeah, all the knee parts are having a whack. Yeah.
But would it be fair to say, and therefore it'd be interesting, maybe this way, just as I'm talking it through, I'm trying to tap into where I'm going with it, which is
Yeah.
it might be interesting for you to have like the anger section, but a chart just like this on anger, and at what point are more people being added, more parts being added onto the chart in their own journey where they're now able to embrace the anger
Okay, right. So if
where
I go
before
out
they
there,
weren't.
yeah, well,
So
I go out there focusing on Trip, who pops their head up?
there you go, because
Because
on this
Sandy
chart,
pops her head up.
there you go. So on this
And
chart, the angry
Teresa.
section. So what's so valuable about this is, look at a glance. This was your core group of angry parts, but I'm thinking this is both, they have their own anger and everybody else's. So it'd be interesting then having a separate sheet, just focusing on the
The anger parts.
right, the transformation of, and so this will be a very good thing for everybody on the inside to participate with, Because if my premise, as I'm thinking about this, as I'm looking at that, they have their anger and everybody else's. And so is it that as others are tapping in, then their own level of rage is decreasing to where ultimately they're
Yeah.
only going to have their own. They've been able to give back because the others have been allowed to risk owning their own, and so
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
decreasing Trip's intensity. And
Yeah, it's definitely happening. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
may want to do a separate, because this is a huge piece. Because if the key to the healing is the anger, then if you can chronicle, like, is there a correlation between? So this will be just interesting. I don't know how you'll graph this out,
Well,
but
yeah, Sandy and Trip are intimately connected along with Teresa, these three.
which
Because
also mean this is interesting. So as Trip is not only venting for himself, but others, then as the others are willing to take their anger back, they're feeling it. So his anger level is decreasing. I mean, the whole body still has the same anger level, but now
right, right.
what that eventually will allow is for Trip to begin to experience the other emotions that he never had an opportunity to, such
Right, yeah, he gets to relax and take a breath.
so that
Because
may
he
be,
knows that Sandy's gonna beat on Ted for 5
and
or
he's
6
allowing
minutes.
her to have her own anger back, so he doesn't have to have his and others.
Well, yeah, and that's the
That's
interplay between Sandy used to be Sadie because she was so sad, right? But anger is under the sadness. So she's split
100%.
off from Trip. So yeah, he's like, I'm pretty fried. I feel done. But then someone else will go, no, I want to hit for a while. And I don't even know who it is, but you know, I gathered that it would be Sandy or Teresa, or like when I punched Chris, you know, Zoe, the zombie, that's her new name, Zoe. She's not quite so zombie-ish
Okay,
anymore.
now, Diana, I'm sorry for interrupting, but we're on to something. This is really okay. Think
Yeah.
about this. So this will
Yeah,
be,
they're all transforming for sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, here's a graphic that I've never even done, but this will be a good one because you have an intuitive sense about this. Okay, think about the idea of the cylinders, right? And the little
Yeah.
containers.
Oh, right.
Okay,
Where Trips is coming down,
right?
Sandy's
But
will
think
come
about the
up. But
range of emotions. So what you have, and this fits just in general psychological theory, where if somebody's in denial, they only have one. So it's all, so you could have the 6 different cylinders per part, and over time, like a part that's in denial has no anger, but quote unquote, all happiness. Think about your sister. Oh, this is how you do. Okay. So we know she's cut off from herself because when I'm healed, I'll probably have an equal amount of all feelings because I can tap into it. So maybe visually, what I'm saying, so it'll be interesting to see with your own creativity, maybe what happens, which is over time chronicling the journey where they were as far as the cylinders. We got all blue, no red. We got maybe this. And then as it happens,
oh, right. Yeah. Yeah.
was
I
there a
can see
shift
it
in the
in my
water
mind.
level?
Yes, I can see it in my
Now
mind.
it's like,
Totally.
that's right.
Yeah.
So it was somebody's in denial. We have no anger, and so the others are high. But as the healing is taking place, that's interesting. Everybody's becoming more balanced in the sense that they're able to access the
Each
full.
other's
There you go. And
essence. Yeah.
therefore, for the first time, the angry ones, all they had is anger and they had no joy. They couldn't experience anything else. But now, just after the anger, for instance, in the grief and loss process, after the anger comes the genuine tears of sadness. Now, it's not the tears that are diverting the rage, but at the
It's
end,
just
I
the
can
release
finally
of
breathe.
energy. Yeah.
So that'll
This
be interesting to see if any of that, because you're opening up then a new project.
my parts are already working on it right now. I can see the
That's going to be
cylinders
phenomenal to
and the
watch.
water
Okay, because
levels.
this may very well be, I'm telling you, ready? This is the answer to the myth of quote unquote integration.
Right.
So
Yeah. I keep thinking, well, if they all get to a point of equilibrium and their rage is gone and they can experience joy and peace,
there.
is that what integration is? They're all,
That's what people don't understand. They're using this idea of integration where the parts disappear. No. So
yeah,
this will be
because I've been thinking the past few days, but why is it so quiet during the parts puddle? And why is it I'm not getting, I don't have so much journal entry.
yeah.
And they're like, well, you got it all. And I'm like, okay. And they're like, you're beating out our rage, so that's good. And you're listening to us. So when we need to tell you, we'll tell you. But otherwise, we're good.
Okay, so what'll be really
Oh,
interesting is pick then what maybe take Trip, and this will be good for Trip, and then let's take somebody that was just purely, and you would know, just one of the ones that would just purely say, "Oh, I'm all happy. I'm just happy. I have no anger." Okay,
yeah.
and then
Yeah,
to
that would be,
chronicle over time as far as your venting, kind of before and then after, eventually that kind of like 3 or 4 over time, because it's going to take multiple venting situation,
sure.
you know.
Yeah.
And then what the shift, like, do you remember as you worked on this memory, you tapped into it, the shift
Well,
took place in another
here's
memory.
the perfect example with Trip and Martha, my mom part, how they
Yeah.
were arguing, where mom was in denial
Okay, there.
and Trip was not. And he's saying, you knew. Well, now Martha's like, well, kind of pissed off at herself that she didn't listen to her intuition, that she didn't take that step when we were babies. She waited for 11 years. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
yeah, her anger, as Tripp's anger was coming down, Martha
So
picked it
that's
up.
so
Yeah.
if I
Yeah.
really think this
And
is
Sandy's sadness, instead of her sadness at this level, her sadness, she would cry and hit Ted. She would
there.
cry and hit Ted. She would
That's
hit
then
Ted, and then the sadness would be gone,
yeah,
and she would get out her
there we
rage.
go.
So yeah, there is
What
an
what we're
interplay
what
between
we're
them.
talking about now is the answer to the myth of integration. To help people understand the parts are never supposed to go away. The parts are to experience healing, and the healing will come when
And
they
they
are
find balance and
there we
peace.
go. So I really this is
And they will know if confronted by a perpetrator or see a hand signal that they now know what that does, that I can tap into that rage intentionally to fight if I need to fight. I know that now.
there we go.
And that if someone approaches me, I've had practice on Ted and I'm going for your nose. You know, if I don't have a weapon. And if I do have a weapon, look out, motherfucker.
That's right.
Yeah. So if I'm in a dangerous situation and need to protect myself or someone else, that I can do it.
Now here's another thing. I'm just
Chris
this
doesn't believe that, but I now know I
yeah,
can.
absolutely.
It was
Now
being in denial that prevented me from having that ability. It's like I know if I can get that knife, that real knife in my hand, and there's an intruder, he's getting it up the rib cage into his heart. Period.
there you go.
I'm not screwing around with, oh, maybe you're a good guy. I'm going to trust the other part that is my spirit, and that is John, and that is Alan, that knows better, right? So
Yeah,
they're not integrating, they're communicating.
there you go.
They're saying, look, we know better, trust
Okay,
us. And
perfect.
the fighter is saying, yeah, I'm on it. So I get to access the parts. They don't integrate and become what, a big blob. They split for a reason.
100%.
I just don't know how that ever goes back together. I don't.
No, that's right. Okay. Now, in thinking about this, so you do whatever you want with it. I can imagine it's like, okay, here goes another uh, blank
Another
whiteboard,
chart.
right? Another chart. Okay, but this will be very interesting. So looking at this, we've got this particular chart with emotions right now, but ultimately everybody's going to be on this chart somewhere.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
being represented, but these were the more core or visceral parts. Now it'll be interesting because the goal would be, and therefore the evolution of it or the natural transformation then would be that each part can now, like on this chart,
Experience, like, because he's not at 100% anymore. He's at, say, 50%. He can feel
there, right?
50%
He
of
can
the joy.
shift. He can now he's
Is
not relegated just to that.
Yeah, yeah. And Joy knows that if she's out riding her bicycle and someone comes after her, that she can call on Trip and he'll kick him in the face.
There you go.
So
So
she's not just this naive person out having fun, that she can call on Trip or Lance or any of them, and they'll trade places
there you go. And
for
so it'll be like,
protection.
so you and Chris then represent a very good living example of this chart. So Chris by nature will always be a Lance.
Yes, because
As
he's a
he
man.
gets healed, he'll have an easier time starting to laugh without chemical induced, starting to experience peace.
Or
So
without being relaxed without a beer. He can
there
relax.
you go. So his primary home, as it will be in the strength category right there, but he then can finally tap into an access. He can then move between those states and come back to rest in his home position.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where before there's just this, well, he is just angry or somebody is just happy. And
Yeah.
so
Or just naive or
so this
just
will be very, yeah, maybe the naive one is absolutely cut off from this page. They won't touch this page with a 10-foot pole. So to think that I don't, this is just a very interesting, I think you're right on a key piece to somebody in moving the ball down the field in their quest, in their journey.
Oh, and I just realized too, as you talk, I kept thinking all these parts, but no, the emotions, because these parts, the tortured ones, like being, a victim to Chris, he hurt my wrist or he choked me or hit my head. Well, these parts came alive and said, fuck you, no.
There,
They tapped into the rage. They
there.
split off and said, okay, so these parts know that no, this is never going to happen again, ever.
There you
So
go.
they're fine. I don't really have any communication with these three parts. Or like with, my dad karate kicking me. I know that will never happen again because these guys will take over and fight back.
Now let me, going back to that
Wow, I never
karate
thought
one,
of that.
the
Yeah,
karate one.
yeah.
For instance, now
Or
who's
I'm not going to be drowned again or
okay now?
smothered in
So, so,
snakes or,
so the question is, have you been able to allow them to tap into their anger?
oh yeah, yeah. But
Very good.
there's,
So they're okay.
but
So that's
theirs
what I was
is,
meaning that in a way it may be
it's like
interesting
this is secondary. It's
there.
like the anger pieces took over and are expressing it not for them, but they start the process. And I always say, whatever parts want to jump in here, take a whack. And they do, and I don't know who they are. But I looking at it, I can see, yeah, they have.
Okay, there you go. That's such a
A Trip got a rest while Karen took a hit.
so right there, right, Diana, you're on such a key piece in the overall healing journey, that exact statement or sentence, what you just said, that Tripp is able then so in a way, he was,
He starts the process.
there you go.
I
But he
think
was
it's
having to hold everybody's rage, but as
mhm,
other
mhm.
parts are finally willing to own their rage or accept it and know
Yeah.
that it's okay, the container for Trip. So Trip has his rage and everybody else's. So as everybody
Yeah.
else is willing to take back their own rage, then his capacity is coming down. Therefore, he now can experience emotions he's never had a capacity for yet.
Right, right. Just not even joy, but just,
Okay, and that's why, as you
you
said,
know,
when after Chris got enraged, he was able to do eye-to-eye intimacy.
oh, I did. Wow. Yeah, that makes
So
sense now.
finally, he was able to, because he got some of that, got that intensity tapped into it. Now the humanity part of him is able to come back.
Yeah, and I'm realizing as we're talking about it, the part that is screaming directly at Lucifer is Michael
100%.
and Lance. They're like, we know you exist. We don't care. Yeah, I'm a 5'5" girl,
That's right.
58-year-old old woman. But you know what? We win. You're done.
And on the spiritual plane,
These
just
two.
right,
Yeah.
you're a force to be reckoned with because you understand the spiritual realm,
All I have to do is invoke Jesus,
right?
period. I mean, how simple is that?
Yeah,
You know? And the only thing that will falter is if I doubt it.
yeah. There you
If
go.
they beguile me, if they lie, if I whatever, but I have a certainty now that I've never had before.
There we go.
So that's really interesting. Yeah. And the sick part, Phoebe, Phoebe was sleepy, and then we have sick needs a new name. But sick is going, wow, I don't have to be sick. All I gotta do is go beat on Ted.
Yeah, and okay, wait. This is I've
And
opened up,
see,
or you've opened up a new literally a new chapter for yourself to talk about the mind-body connection.
well, and even with sleepy, Phoebe,
There.
I had like 4 hours sleep one day, and I was sitting down to work on the computer and going, Phoebe, so I'm just tired, and not, she's not keeping up with things. And one of the parts said, go beat on Ted, your adrenaline, and it'll wake your ass up. And that's what used to happen in life when I was a kid, is
Yeah.
I'd be sleepy, dragging ass to school and trying to whatever. And what would happen is somebody or something would, the teacher would be like, Diana, or they would, or not even yell at you. They just call on you, Diana, do you have and your adrenaline would surge.
No.
And so I realized, okay, when I'm sleepy, just tap into the adrenaline and I'm awake. And sleepy goes away and the adrenaline part takes over. But now the adrenaline part saying, well, okay, I'm not fighting. I'm looking at a piece of paper. This is okay. And I'm awake. And maybe I'll get drowsy again and I'll, go whack Ted a couple times and you'll wake up. So
And it also could be that's the way the part goes into denial. It starts to shut down as far as make you physically sleep. I've heard that from a number of survivors. When they get close to an issue, all of a sudden it's like they can't
that's what
sleep.
happened to me in the beginning. Remember, I told you that I would walk around suddenly, I'd just be very tired. And so I'd sit in my recliner to take a little nap. And as I dropped off, then I'd bam, have a memory and a surge of adrenaline. So yeah, that is how that worked.
Yeah.
But now I'm not having that sleepy, drowsy thing anymore. It transformed from that during the day to it only happened at night as I'm going to sleep. The adrenaline would come, and then I would be up for 4 hours and only get 4 hours sleep. But even that is going away. I'm able to just go to sleep, and like this morning, the parts were like, okay, you need to get outside and go pull your phone out because Chris was still sleeping. And that was when I dictated that little bit of smoking stuff. They're like, we want that recorded. And I was like, okay. Because they know that I'll do it. They didn't need to wake me up in the middle of the night to do it.
So that's so
There's
valuable.
a level of trust there that they go, okay, we'll let you sleep, but here's what's going on. It doesn't have to be that intense, shocking I think, plus I think because I've found all the parts, hopefully. Every time I think that there's something else, but it hasn't been coming up. So,
Yeah, I know you had referenced that, I think, in one of the videos that I watched. But that will be another, so I would take note of what you just said. That's such a key piece,
yeah,
which is to the extent that, right, you get to know and they trust you, and things will start to, right, it's moving more
it's a huge
smoothly as a
level.
team.
You have to record it when they want you to record
And you
it.
said that, I think, on video one,
Yeah, and if you
to
don't, they're
reemphasize.
like, well, screw you. You don't care. We're
So
going to try it again.
I don't think you can emphasize that enough.
Hmm.
Repetition being the key to remembrance. To help someone understand that's the value of journaling, that's the value of capturing this.
And not just writing it down. Like one of my journal entry, I don't think it's posted yet, but I talk about that. I'm actually reading my journal, my handwritten
There you
journal.
go. That's another key piece, right? It
And I
sinks in.
go, oh my God,
It
I
sinks
just
in.
realized there's a detail that just popped into my head as I'm rereading this.
And you had mentioned that previously, right? You do it about 3 or 4
Well,
times.
I will do it all throughout the journaling because I know I'm going to get more details.
So feel free, obviously, to bring that up in another video, right?
Oh, I will. I definitely, I've
Hearing that,
already a couple of times.
okay, it's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah, the repetition
Beautiful.
is huge. But I know we're at noon. You probably have
Now,
some.
let's keep going for a few more minutes here.
So then the mind stuff. Yeah, these guys were tortured. These guys were beguiled. These guys were imprisoned. This was the biblical beguilement and the cigarettes. So I think if I work on TED specifically on the lungs, that's going to shake stuff up. But
Absolutely. Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
but
Mhm.
Tasmania, I realized here in this other PowerPoint that Tasmania isn't that was the only picture I could find of the Tasmanian devil. And I was getting him mixed up with Wizzy. Wizzy is the whirlwind around everything, keeping it all, in a vortex tucked away in the lily, the mind file. Tasmania is the bird of prey that fly. It's that aircraft that flies around the battlefield,
Yep.
sees a problem, bam, drops a bomb on it,
Yep.
but puts it back in its pocket. So Wizzy is the whirlwind, and Tasmania is the bird of prey.
Which
And
shows you their strength, right? Those two are very, very
mhm,
key healing
yeah,
part.
and see on this page, I got to figure out, I don't think I want to remove them, but I wanted to give it visual impact because Wizzy is still connected with the old world occultist stuff and the new world scientific stuff. So this page up here is these were the jobs, normal jobs, each one having its own trauma. Because moneymaker, Jack made moneymaker, you got to go make money. Okay. Well, I'll go back here. You have Sarge connected along with Jack, right? So you move up here, and that
Yep.
moved into making money. And I think I need to draw a line here. But okay, got to make money, got to live in the world. Okay, we made money by training and killing. So these are all the killers, and I had to be on stage, and I had to do this stupid dance and whatever. And we made money through. I didn't make money through sex, but they made money through sex. So the
Yep.
butterfly, the monarch programming, was the sexual component. The Beatles are the killers. They're if somebody woke up or whatever, I would either kill myself or kill someone else. The Beatles were the bugs that would go and destroy
Do
the
you think
planet.
that's why that the group Beatles called themselves the Beatles?
Oh, geez, I don't know.
Because you look at how their music transformed.
Right,
It
maybe
became a
so.
horrible tool. I mean, right? To the 60s and the Beatles are inseparable. So maybe it was that.
Well, it was to destroy the family unit, right? Make people
Otherwise, you
sexually
wonder if that's
promiscuous, get them into the new age, the spiritual corruption,
and
the
whoever
sexual
was behind
corruption.
them, they find this little band, they prop them because they're not very good. I don't
No,
know.
Alan talks about they didn't write any of their own music.
Okay, so
Any of
the
it.
Beatles start out with this little 50s pop thing, and before you know it, it's the most heinous, bizarre. And then look at Sergeant Pepper's, well, but on that album,
Yeah.
then they have
They have
Aleister
Aleister
Crowley.
Crowley on the cover.
So maybe,
Yeah.
in fact, that the Beatles,
And the song that was key to me, My Sweet Lord, they're not talking
there we
about
go, and
Jesus, they're
and
talking about Hare Krishna.
yeah, Yellow Submarine. I mean, the to me, the Beatles are the 60s.
Oh
And
my
so how do
God,
you
and it could have been this Mind Files programming conveyed to the whole public through music.
there you go, that the CIA props up this band, creates it with knowing that they're going to do this. They can't do these weird songs at first, so you have this little group, the Ed Sullivan Show. Here are the Beatles. They do this little thing, the
Right,
bebop.
right.
Everybody's bebopping, but before you know it, it's turned into. I remember my brother have a White Album. No, that's I forget which one, but right, it's just this weird, horrible stuff. And I kept thinking, how do you go from Ed Sullivan bebopping to
Mm-hmm.
this
Mm-hmm. And yeah, now
bizarre,
you're going over to
the
India thinking
walrus
that,
thing,
yeah.
this psychedelic thing, and the fact that they're called the Beatles, and here you're talking about the Beatles, I can
And I
easily.
keep thinking, why did I select a beetle? Why did plant, my part that was looking outside, going, because in a garden, it's certain little bugs that will eat away at the base of a plant and it'll kill the whole thing. And they're not beetles per se, but they're chewing and crunching creatures. You got a potato bug and you got cabbage bugs and you got whatever, but they all work the same way. And aphids as well.
Yeah,
Is where the beetles come from the base of the plant and get the base of it. The aphids attack the leaves. So the beetle for me represents the bugs that kill the plant.
but it's interesting that the term actually came from you.
Was
Now
the
that as you're
beetle.
describing
Yeah.
again, think about what they looked like. The Beatles that appeared on the Ed Sullivan Show were
Right.
clean cut. They
Clean
were
cut.
normal looking
Yeah.
kids.
Right, but after what, 5 or 10 years, they're
Mm,
looking like, the long
hell,
hair
long
and
over.
the new
Right. And
age
so
clothes and all that.
talk about eating away at the base of the culture.
Oh
They're
God.
synonymous in my mind, right? Like music, what group comes to my mind if I ask you about the 70s? Well, you're going to have some, but the Beatles have to. There
They
was such a
embody, yeah.
there
They
was such a
they
shift
they were the shift from the family,
there. So I could
nuclear
see eating
family
away.
to let's add sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
There you go.
That was the Beatles, yeah. And that was that spiritual corruption because then they introduced the Eastern
There you go. There you go.
religions, and that's what Madame Blavatsky started in the 1800s was combining the her goal was to combine Christianity with the Eastern religions, which were occultism,
Yeah.
so that they could degrade Christianity.
It'd be interesting to then, just
And
chronologically.
that's represented here, John. Oh my goodness.
So
Because
it'd
we
be
go
interesting to
from,
find the order of the Beatles albums and to kind of get a sense of the lyrics. How were they
yeah.
changing
Oh,
from
right.
album to
Yeah.
album to album?
Yeah. Oh, I don't know the Beatles very well at
I don't
all.
know either, but
But yeah, but see, here's that influence of, okay, the occult filtering down through my family and filtering through just, the spiritual, the Bible, New Age, we're having nightmares. And then we go into the New Age, the healing, the meditation. Now I've got, energies coming to me and I'm drawing down demons. And then I go into Scientology.
Wow.
right? So yeah, that makes total sense. And then this stream was the stream that Blue split off into spirit, the spirit of God, with my intellect being putting things together, reading, my natural clairvoyance, the dreams, my intuition, moving down into my creative and healthy, the babies, the creative, and then you and Alan and the video and Jesus. That's where those vines move into.
It'd be interesting, Diana, for you to be able to take screenshots or whatnot, but finally have that larger canvas so you literally then could connect all the vines. So in one look at a
I
glance,
know, I
there's
know.
that,
I wish
oh,
I could find.
there's got to be an endless whiteboard for
So
your.
I know I probably just have to buy something. But I
That's
thought, well, in the
great.
meantime, I didn't want to lose my
No,
my
that's right. Yeah, it's perfect. But really, as you're
my
filling
flow. Yeah.
out, be able to see the entire matrix, so to speak, so to
Yeah,
speak.
because this was me splitting off into God,
Yeah.
into rage,
Yep.
into fear and anxiety, into basically, the abuse and torture. And a lot of, all those branched into a million parts, but this was, this is me here stuffing my rage with food or pot, food, drugs, 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 stuffing the rage, or pushing the rage away and going into despair, or pushing the rage away. Well, not pushing it away, but trying to tell, or hiding, or, manipulating my mom, which got us out of the situation, which vined down into me having my own life and
There you
my
go.
own husband. And then, the split between the bad stuff with him and the good stuff with
There
him.
you go. There you go.
So yeah, and it's very different from the one that I did on paper, which is ironic.
Yeah.
Because
No,
I thought, well, doing the one on paper kind of started the puzzle.
there you go. There you go.
And yeah, but
Okay. I hate to have another suggestion for you. I'll just throw it out.
I know it, don't you? If you have someone waiting, I don't want to,
No, no, actually, I do have an appointment in a little bit, but I want to take
Okay, okay,
this.
yeah.
Here's, I think this will be, just as exactly you said, and you've experienced now, and you know that each time you kind of take another turn, take at this, right? It's just the way the intuition works. You're getting a feel for it. So I really think taking the step to purchase for your program that program,
Yeah, a
and
big,
then
big,
as
big
you're
thing.
taking, right, and then I would even go, I would, right, it's still going to take a little bit, but I would start with that blank canvas and not just connect these screenshots, but literally, we're now going to draw this out and add everybody. But I think you going through, right, it'd
Just
be,
trying to sort it out. Yeah.
I think what you're even going to find is you're putting it, so you take everybody's pictures now, because what I was thinking is, well, just position one PowerPoint over the other, and then you can follow it. But I really think you
Yeah,
take
to be
all of
on
this,
one. No, I've thought of that too. It needs to be on one
but
thing.
as you do it, my guess is it's even going to refine before your eyes.
Yeah, because when I first did, I had no idea that Blue split in four ways.
Yeah,
Or that David split off into what, one, two, three, four, five, six, seven parts, depending on the circumstance.
yeah, and that makes sense because intuitively, I've always thought, you can have parts split into five or six, but you've added a seventh, so that makes sense, right? You
Yeah,
so
because
overwhelm
there's
them.
fear, there's anger,
I
there's,
see.
it's just, and then Jack comes into the picture and splits off even, these mind files. That's why these pages are so organized because it was at that point
That's invaluable. Okay,
that the
I
mind
really,
files sorted them
there you
more
go.
like a computer. But
I think
before
it's the right
Jack,
time, Diana. I really think it's the right, because what you just described is these perps always start with the SRA stuff because that's the splitting and the trauma. The worst kind of trauma is on the spiritual level.
Well, and it trains your mind to do it.
There, and then the scientific, see, it's perfect. So I really think today, purchase whatever program you need to and get everything on one page
Okay.
for you, right? Where you're able to zoom in and out, but an
Well, and
endless
I'm thinking too that I need to put their original pictures on there because
okay.
the split is the original picture.
There you go. There you go.
Like these are the people who've chosen new names and new pictures. So that doesn't really
Absolutely.
convey the evil that was present.
There
You
you
know
go.
what I'm saying? So I was thinking about that too. I thought, to show it in its real, raw, original
There you go.
state, I gotta have the
But
old.
then to have the transition, so now they've got different pictures, it's invaluable because then
Yeah.
it's like the before and after. So you're seeing stuff transition and talk about an additional assignment, but to be able to have this kind of chart, then you click on each picture and then it takes you to all that written stuff on everybody that you, so if any,
Oh, right. Yeah. I was
really
thinking
dynamic.
all these programs that I found, I thought, well, okay, let me just buy one, maybe $100 or $200, whatever. They all want a subscription. That's why I haven't done it yet, because they
Yeah.
want you to, and they're going to wind up owning it. I mean, granted, I buy it, but let's say 2 years I stop paying for a subscription.
But then at least you can take a big screenshot and you have, or try to, yeah, I mean, I wonder there's got to be something out there that's not a subscription because I know with the
Well,
little,
and here's the thing, though. I was just thinking, my sister Angie has a printer at work that will print something off that's 4 feet wide and endlessly long. Because she owns a print shop. And Chris at work, because they're is just like this. It's so huge.
that's right.
They've got a printer that's 3 feet and paper that's like 3 or 4 feet wide. So maybe I could just take a flash drive up there and print
No,
it off.
but I think too, for you visually, it might be worth it for a year, then do the subscription,
Yeah, yeah, I'm
right?
thinking that
To
too.
be able to,
But
for you to be able to manipulate the screen, like the endless whiteboard, the one that I did, I can zero in and now it looks like a little cluster or, right, I get as micro or macro. I think that's what's going to be invaluable.
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
I would do it for a year just because you're working so diligently at this. I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
that visual
I didn't
effect,
really dig very deep though. I might be able to find something that's not
I think it's going to be invaluable for you, right? To be,
yeah.
I just really, for you to be able to get everything on one page, meaning you've got the content, it's absolutely perfect.
Yeah, see that's what I'll do here is let me do this. Where is it? Oh no, darn it. Where is that? Here it is. I'll go I'll go like that so I can kind of see it all
Yeah.
together.
Yeah.
But there's not three whirlwinds, there's just one.
Yep.
So
And
yeah, I know
so,
what you mean. I'd like to see
right.
it as one
It'll bring out
whole unit.
it'll allow your right brain because we've got a left brain analysis, meaning everything, you know what I mean? Everything's absolutely perfect, but it's really going to take you to the next level for everybody to see everything
Well,
in
and
one
imagine fully
screenshot.
understanding your mind,
Yeah. Yeah.
fully in the details. That in itself is just gobsmacking to me because I don't know that psychology ever goes there
No, I'm telling you, right? Because
at all.
so it's just,
Granted, this is my mind,
yeah.
but, maybe, like Gray was talking about, someone else is a Rubik's Cube. How do you even see into
Right.
that center cube?
But you're the person that's finally mapping out. So we hear the term, everybody will use the term, well, in my system, but I tell you what, they haven't mapped it out. So
Well,
what
and
you're
that's huge. It's so huge. I
there.
think that's why my mind feels so restful now. Like I haven't touched this for 3 or 4 days.
So it's
And
almost there.
yeah, yeah. And I got a couple videos done for Alan's channel, so I'm like, okay, I could put more energy into this again.
I'll tell you what it's also going to do for, I almost said, for the average survivor. Well, oh gosh, Okay, but the average Vietnam vet that's seen combat, thank you, right? How do you even use that phrase? But it will then, it's going to so demystify. It's like, oh, okay, so this is a goal. So I need to,
You got to get in there and dig.
right? And it just
Yeah.
shows, oh, there's going to be, it's going to make sense of what doesn't make sense at the very beginning of the journey.
Right. And it didn't to me.
There you
Like I
go.
said, the sketch on paper that I did is very different from this. I thought that I had to have, like out in my real garden where the vines crisscross and do all this business. And I'm like, well, it's all that's doing is confusing me. Not confusing me, but just it made it more difficult to see. And I thought, well, let's just take the vine and straighten it out.
There you
And
go.
so that's what I did here.
There you go.
And granted, there's still some, little curly cues, but that's this whole mind foul business, which I still need to sort that out a little bit. Because there's, she's the prison guard and she's the, sergeant and she's communications and
There you go.
dad, pollinates and so, yeah, the images of how a garden functions, because that's my mind file, is a flower with the tombstone SRA stuff. But yeah, this seems a little weird to me, but
My
I don't
hunch
know.
is if you're gonna do a larger,
It'll
it'll
sort itself out.
100%. I really think that's what's going to happen is you're doing it and everything is on one page because
Yeah.
you could cut and paste and superimpose the one chart on top, right? That would be easier. But I really am now thinking
I
for
think you're
you,
right. Yeah. And I've said that to myself too.
yeah,
I want it on one single unit.
it's worth the investment for you because you're doing such hard work. So to be able to pan the camera back even more as you then manually are taking all the same exact screenshots of everybody, and now you're starting from a blank canvas. I think it's really going to define. You'll see some of this is going to take care of itself intuitively.
Yeah. Yeah, and see how I'm sitting here smoking a cigarette, staring at Siggy, right? And thinking, well,
The
she
connection.
just encompasses so much.
That's right.
I'm trying to figure, I put lines that they're all connected and I needed space, but I didn't have it. And I'm like, so yeah, this whole thing here needs to get sorted out and to combine with these,
And if
you
there
know.
could be, again, I don't know, but if there could be that three-dimensional program out
Oh,
there,
yeah, with the
can you imagine, right? Because then it's starting at the center and going different directions in terms of east, west, north, south. Who knows if that's there, but wouldn't that because then you can put here's
Oh
the
my
top,
God, and which vines move towards the sun and
okay?
which
And
vines
then
move towards, oh
that's
yeah,
right. And so
yeah.
here's you up here, the primary person is talking, but under the surface, here's all the, and then in terms of who's more core as far as age and when, so I
All
don't know if
right.
that's out there.
Or the emotional, oh my goodness, that's like a whole nother.
I'm telling you. So yeah, don't get overwhelmed, right? It's just we're talking just possibilities.
Yeah, one at a time. But see,
There you go. There you go.
Ivy, who is IQ, and Puzzle, who is now Penny, they're already working on it. They're like, oh, we got another job.
Oh, I'm telling you, right? Because talk about a four-dimensional, I don't know, would that be three or four-dimensional? But it's really, wouldn't that be something? Because it really is.
Yeah, and imagine putting the emotional, the rage and the emotions next to it,
Oh,
right? And so as this part is releasing rage, this one over here on the other part of the vine is coming, and as this one's coming, this
there we
one's,
go. There we go.
and just that interplay. That would almost have to be like anime, you know what I mean? Animation or something.
Yeah, I'm telling you, right? So
It'd
you
be a
got a lot.
whole
I just
new thing to
one day
learn.
at a time, but there's so much potential to help survivors understand, okay, here's where you are in the journey, but here's where you're going to go. Ultimately, you're going to fill out your own map. So you got to do that
Yeah, and
excavation.
it's not going to look like mine if yours is a
That's right.
lamp
But the
post.
concept is
Yeah,
it's a
yeah.
whole world within a world. You have to get to know it. And,
And see
it's
what
going
it
to,
looks like. Just to see what it looks like is
there you
like,
go. There you
wow.
go.
Wow. And as you're looking at it going, I don't know, there's something about that doesn't seem right. Or, and then you sort it out and you go, oh, that's better. And I think that's why I feel so peaceful because I sorted it out.
There we go.
Because it wasn't until I finished this. I mean, granted, the names need to go in there and all that, but yeah, I haven't felt the need to obsess on this anymore. They're like, yeah, but do an Alan video. I was like,
There you go.
okay.
Right.
And as I'm doing, here's what's interesting. I found some videos on Helena Blavatsky to put with Alan's words. You know what one of the images were in there? Of that black sun from Himmler's castle. They showed they cut it off at a certain point, but when that came on the screen, I hit pause and I went, oh my God, that's Himmler's
Blavatsky had that.
castle.
Tell me where was that from?
It was from a video on YouTube about Helena Blavatsky. And I didn't even listen to the video. I just grabbed the video because I like the imagery and popped it in there. And so I'm listening to Alan talk, making sure the imagery makes sense with it. And I got to that part and I went, holy crap, there's Himmler's castle. And, I don't know what the documentary was talking about, but it was right at the part where Alan was talking about the occult. And that's what's really interesting when I do Alan's videos is that I'll get this impression, I'll pick 4 videos, let's say, or 20 audios, and I'll get the impression, put that one on the left, put that one on the middle, put that one on the right. And it's not my thinking, it's just this intuition, right? And so as I do the same thing with videos, put that the left being the beginning and the right being the end. And as I match the audio up with the video, they sync. So it's like God or Alan himself, I don't know, knows and is saying, lay it out this way.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
if I don't listen to it, I'll notice it doesn't flow right.
That's right.
Go,
That's right.
dang it, they told me to put it over there.
That's right.
And then I gotta fix it. So as long as I get in that flow
There
space,
it
I think
is,
we
right?
call it, it
That's
winds up great and it's simple and it's quick. But
that's
if I
right.
start trying to do it logically, then I have problems and
That's right.
whatever. So it's like it flows through me.
It's hard. It's hard to get in that flow state. That's exactly what, as I'm doing some of the videos that I'm that
Well, and
you
that's why I'm glad I didn't really touch any for a while. And you know what's ironic too? I did a video on the Baphomet, one for the
oh
Signs and
yeah.
Symbols series. And I had sent it was one of the last ones I did. I'd sent it to Melissa, and she probably could have done 6 or 7 more before that, but she put it up this week. And as I was watching it, it dawned on me, that's the horn symbol. That's what was painted on me. Their god is the Baphomet. Which, you could have concluded from 100 different things, but I never put it together.
There you
I just
go.
saw the horned god from when, Moses came down with the 10 Commandments and they were worshiping the cow with the horns, or whatever. That's what I kept thinking, that it was that god. But no, it suddenly hit me. It was the Baphomet. They're worshiping the Baphomet, the horns. Because if you superimpose that onto a pentagram, the 2 points of the pentagram are the horns.
That's right. That's right.
And I was like, duh. I never put it together until like 2, 3 days ago. And it was from a video that I made
Okay. That's
when I was in a flow state and I didn't put it together.
okay. There you go. Well, Diana, you're doing wonderful work. Wonderful work.
Thank you.
Wow.
But yeah, it's like God's doing it.
There you go.
You
There
know
you
what
go.
I mean? When my intellect gets involved, then it gets all screwed up. But yeah, my parts are guiding me. And when I put it on paper, something else happens. So, but yeah, you got to put the work in. You really do. And I know Chris was getting annoyed. He spent so much time on that. Yeah. I said, well, you know what? I'm moving faster than anybody on the planet, so be happy about that.
Thank you very much, right?
You go.
And again,
His argument is always, why ain't quit living in the past? Quit living in. I said, I'm not living in the past. I'm discovering it.
well, and he hasn't even touched the past, and so he can't
Right.
live in the present
Right. Right. So yeah.
without being chemically induced. That's interesting, right? To just
Yeah. 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 That's basically it. And that's where I was smoking pot all that time.
yeah.
It's in a chemically induced stupor.
And so that's an interesting tagline, or that Chris says, which is a typical person. I was going to say, why you live in the past? Well, it depends, right? We got to make sure the past is finally buried. It is finished, so that I can live in the
Not
present.
even buried. It's just there for me to look at
That's it.
and tap into if I need
That's
to.
it. Or as far as the grief and loss process, but to
Oh
the extent that
yeah,
it's
yeah.
not finished and settled, I can't live in the present. So
Exactly. And he
those that
doesn't
are
get
saying,
that.
you're living in the past, it's interesting. They aren't even living in the present.
I agree. Totally.
So
Yeah.
that's just an
But he doesn't,
interesting
you
concept.
couldn't even explain that to him because he would be like, no, you're wrong. You're this, you're
I
that.
know,
Like,
I know.
whatever. I get it. So
Well, Diana, the fact that you're now, it has been clearly made, you've been made aware that this little visitor, right? So let me
I'm
pray.
just, yeah.
We're gonna pray, and it was very confirming when you described what just happened to you. Then last night, it's like, whoa, we're over the target. So you're on the field, you're doing it, you're doing the hard work. I as your coach, so we're all targets. But
Yeah,
I
here we
I
are.
have
But we got the best protector,
thank
so
you very
we're
much.
good.
Thank you very much.
Granted, we got to go through the nitty-gritty work, but that's
Right.
part of the package.
You're
So
doing a tremendous job.
thanks. So are you.
Well, thank you. You know, okay, well, let me pray. Let me,
Okay. All right.
Lord, thank you. Thank you that Diana and I can continue to work together. And Lord, it's a reminder that we do not wrestle with flesh and blood. And thank you for the knowledge that's revealed in your word, that greater is he who is within us and he who is within the world, and that Satan is on a leash, that he can only do what you permit. Lord, we are not ignorant, we're not unaware of his strategies and wiles. So thank you that we understand how he operates. And so that's why we want to remain on the path so that we are protected. Lord, help us to, in both of our lives, help us to walk in wisdom. Lord, thank you that you have rescued Diana. You preserved her from stuff I can't even fathom what she went through. Lord, thank you that you are redeeming this so that she will be able to be that trailblazer, that lifeline that others can hold on to, other survivors to hold on so they can find the way out through all the morass. Lord, thank you for her spiritual sensitivity. Continue to just communicate to her your will, your direction. Give her discernment as far as all the different things, the pieces of this and all the different pressures that she feels as far as the natural desire to put so much of this down. Give her a sense of just the pace of it so that she can methodically be able to tap into that intuitive sense of how all this fits, all the inner world. Lord, thank you for her dedication to herself and the venting. Lord, keep your hand upon her and upon Chris. And I would ask that whatever demonic stuff has been going on, Lord, cleanse that whole house and do it so that also Chris can see by virtue of now a lack of or a cessation of that demonic creature. So bring peace in that home and help him to notice, Lord, the lack of demonic activity. But again, just continue to help Diana put on the full armor and just surround that house with your angels. Lord, thank you again for the cross. Thank you for choosing us and forgiving us. And thank you for this mission that we're on. Thank you for Diana's fortitude as she is moving the ball down the field. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay, well.
I want to say, Jesus, dear God, keep your hand on Jon and Susan and protect them and their home, that they may continue to help others like me, and that it will be a cascade of your love through us out to every single person that needs it. In your name, in Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. How true, huh?
Yes. I feel like we're a team.
That's right. That's right. A little special ops team.
Yes. So
well, you are doing that work, Dana. You're going to help set captives free. So you're doing it for you, but your channel is going to be invaluable for survivors.
I hope so.
There you go. Okay, well, until what, Monday? Do we meet Monday or Tuesday?
Tuesday and Friday.
And sorry about that. Okay, yeah.
Where are we? We're on Friday now.
Yeah, there you
We
go.
dissociated.
Okay. Well, you're great, and we'll pick it up at this point.
All right. Have a good weekend.
Talk to you then.
Okay, bye.